or where the pizza is outside and fill in the form so that you can get the credit for it. And as many of you know, I'm Dr. Ahu. I'm an assistant professor of game design at College of Architecture and Design. I'm also the internal director of the game design program, and my work is in the intersection of education, critical play, games and systems thinking. And I also often refer to Eric's work in my own research and teaching, so I'm very excited to introduce him as a part of our lecture series today. At the college, we believe that the future of design is multidisciplinary, and we host a range of design degrees that include graphic design, product design with a concentration in mobility, game design, interior design, architecture, and a master of design and technology. We track design future trends, emerging technologies, and advancements in practice as a means of crafting education approaches in new areas. Our Design by Technology series allows us to engage in design discussions and offer broad perspectives on where we are headed. Today, Eric Zimmerman, game designer, art professor at NYU Game Center, will present a talk, Playing with Systems, followed by a playground style activity, which might be in connection, but maybe we might change the room as well. After this presentation, we will continue this conversation and answer questions. This will be followed by a hands-on battle workshop for the students who sign up for it. Eric is a veteran game designer who makes award-winning games on and off computer. Along with Peter Lee, he was the co-founder of Game Lab, a New York City-based studio that created original games like Diner Dash and worked with companies like Lego to create dozens of online titles. He was a co-founder of the nonprofit the Institute of Play, which designed entire schools where the curriculum was based on play and games as the model of learning. With architect Natalie Pazzi, he has designed installations that have been shown in the Museum of Modern Art, the Smithsonian American Art Museum, and the other festivals and museums around the world. He is the co-founder of the top-ranked NYU Game Center, where he teaches as an arts professor. Eric's books include Rules of Play, co-authored with Katie Salim, a textbook that helped establish game design as a discipline, and The Rules You Break, a compendium of his game design exercises. He teaches and lectures extensively about game design and is always ready to play. Please help me welcome Eric Zimmerman.
Thank you. Thank you, Ahu, for having me here, and to Lawrence Tech and everyone that took part in bringing me out here. Okay, so it's really happy to be here. So what's going to happen is I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my background. So although that was a really complete bio, but show you some quick slides of stuff that I've done so you know who I am and where I'm coming from. I'm going to talk, this is a lecture series, so I thought, okay, I'll give a little bit of a lecture, talk a little bit about game design, and some ideas from game design. But the main thing that I want to do with you is to actually interact with you and play with you. And so we're going to go to another space where we can have more room and something more participatory. So I actually grew up in Indiana, in the middle of the United States. So I had a whole childhood of playing folk games like Kick the Can and Ghost in the Graveyard, Dungeons and Dragons, early computer games. My parents were professors of art education. And this is maybe the topic for another lecture, but I always think that art ed, even though it's not really a sexy discipline, that we don't think of it that way, is actually a much more sophisticated approach to how we leverage an aesthetic form for learning or social change or education. Like in games, people talk about how do you sort of efficiently inject information into a player, but art educators don't look at a painting and say, how does that painting efficiently inject information or behavior change into a viewer? So, but that's maybe for another lecture. I actually was trained as an artist originally. So I got a BFA in painting, and a lot of my professors were students of Joseph Albers. So they were from the Yale School, and they were very sort of a modernist academic painters, and this is actually some of their work of my professors, and they would say things like there are no ideas in art. What they meant was that art to them was like line, color, composition, the pure visual qualities of art, right? Meanwhile, so that was like a very strong point of view to take, but on the other hand, I was an art student in Philadelphia. I would go up to New York, and I was looking at contemporary art. Now, this is like the turn of the 80s, early 90s. And those artists were doing completely other things, right? They were not looking at line, color, composition. They thought of art as a sort of cultural critique of something that had something to say to society and culture. And now that I'm a game designer, I like to think about both of these things, right? I want to hold on to both of these things. as someone who's working in a field that as a discipline was not formalized until fairly recently, I do want to think about what is the line, color, and composition of games. What are the essential qualities of games that we would think about and study and learn about in order to design experiences for people? But that's sort of necessary but not sufficient, right? So I also want to think about what are the ways that games are part of a larger cultural landscape. So I'll go quickly through this sort of bio part, but because Ahu did such a good job on that. But this was the period when I was sort of emerging from a student into being a professional designer. Wired magazine was coming out, and CD-ROMs and first wave VR was happening. And just to give you a sense of what it was like at that time, this was a poster for Voyager, which was this very sexy CD-ROM company working with like Brian Eno to make interactive media. And they had this contest called New Voices, New Visions that was about new interactive works of culture. And if you just look at the judges, sorry about the resolution, but this is like Laurie Anderson, Terry Gilliam from Monty Python, who directed Brazil. Jenny Holzer, the artist, I don't know, William Gibson, who helped invent cyberpunk as a genre, Art Spiegelman, the famous comic artist that did Mouse. So these were like the cultural gatekeepers of the time. And if you look at what the contest says, it says, do not enter this contest if you want home shopping encyclopedias and video games to define the information superhighway. So, and by the way, we use terms like information superhighway unironically. It was actually a thing that people said back then. But so video games basically they were basically addictive, and violent, and for kids, right? So it just was, I was sort of coming from this art background and wanting to work in this field that I was attracted to because I felt like there were all these interesting possibilities in games, but it was, since then I think games have become much more kind of culturally accepted and adopted in the culture at large. So these are some of the early titles when I first started working. Gearheads was for a CD-ROM, a game about little toys battling on a playfield. Sissy Fight was a game about little girls on a playground in a social conflict that was very much a kind of feminist intervention into games that I did with Word.com. I ran a studio with Peter Lee called Game Lab. We did a lot of titles. Diner Dash was our biggest hit. We did a lot of work with Lego and MTV and other companies in New York. As Ahu mentioned, I helped start this nonprofit, the Institute of Play, that designed whole schools based on the idea of play and games as how people learn. Some more recent title, Apple published this game, Dear Reader, for their arcade platform. This takes public domain literature and turns it into procedural word puzzles. I also make tabletop games. So these are some of the games that I've made over the years. And this is a newer initiative called the Green Games Guide that's about sustainable practices for designing and manufacturing and distributing card games and board games. So it's kind of like an industry guide that I'm working on with a bunch of climate scientists and other designers and publishers and manufacturers of tabletop games. These are some shots of those installations that Ahu mentioned I've been doing with architect Nathalie Pozzi at places like Museum of Modern Art, Smithsonian American Art Museum. They're often multi-room installations that are sculptural or performative. And I teach too at the NYU Game Center. So we have an MFA and a BFA program. We're like a really warm community of people that like here make games and study games and play games. And if you're ever passing through New York City, we have a lot of public events that love to have you come and visit. I also write about game design too. So these are books I did with Katie Salen, Rules of Play and the Game Design Reader. And this is my most recent book, The Rules We Break. It's really a compendium of the ways that I teach design through games and play. And that's actually, which to me means playing and modding and making games. So it's sort of I think much like you do here at Lawrence Tech, it's sort of, learning design through making, a process of making, which is what, after I'm done talking, we're all going to go and do for a little while. But first I thought I wanted to talk about some of these key concepts from games. And my goal here, especially because I love talking to this kind of audience, which are not just game people, but also people from other art and design fields, because my contention, and maybe this is my myopic point of view coming from games, is that games have something interesting to say to fields outside of games, especially in the context of an art school or design school. I think that there's interesting concepts and practices and methods that we can bring from games into other areas. By the way, I don't know, none of you can see the screen, right? So I guess, maybe it's, all right, very, very good. So, wow, technology. I love that. So, okay, so let's look at some of these key concepts. And I want to talk about, I said, the relevance of games, right? The relevance of games to things outside of games, because I think there's something happening today in society and across cultural media, and I'm going to really make some very big generalizations. But if the 20th century was about the rise of the moving image as a dominant form of culture, right? How we advertised, how cultural myths were spun out, how personal stories emerged, how sort of epic cultural myths were propagated throughout the culture through film and television. And of course, there's plenty of other great forms of culture in the 20th century, music and theater and poetry, literature, etc. But there was a sense that the moving image became this kind of dominant form of cultural expression. But in the 21st century, something is happening to the moving image, right? Media are becoming less about sitting in that darkened theater and watching an image, and more about they're more participatory, they're more interactive, they're more modular, they're more systemic. Games happen to be a cultural form that is very ancient human practice, but is also modular and systemic and participatory and customizable, right? Every game, in a sense, is like a little system of inputs and outputs for exploring cause and effect. And really, this is an argument about literacy. In a sense that games are about understanding how literacy works in the 21st century, but they're also about practicing and designing and expanding our sense of what literacy is too. So I'm not a literacy scholar, but I'm friends with some of them. I guess it's like I play a doctor on TV. But I've learned from some of them that what literacy is. So if I just write something on the board, I've written something, you understand something, and this act of creating and understanding meaning, that's what literacy is about, right? And we can talk about visual literacy and numerical literacy, technological literacy, but in a general sense, literacy is about creating meaning for others to understand. And this is also a way that we can think about design as well. And it's in this context of making and understanding meaning, how we as designers do that, and how that meaning sort of propagates into the world, that I want to think about some of these concepts. So let's start with play. Play for me it's not just about goofing around, right? It is sort of about the messy, wild, and creative kind of moment of play. But it's also, for me, a profound way of thinking about how we relate to each other, how to critically engage with the world. So tell me if I'm somehow wandering out of mic or camera. But let's talk about what one way of thinking about play. So in English, we use play in a lot of different ways. One of the ways that we talk about play is play of like a gears, right? Like if there's like a little bit of looseness between gears, we talk about that as free play, right? Or like a steering wheel. Since this is Detroit, let's talk about cars, I guess. Sorry. So there's like a little bit of loose play in the steering wheel. What is that? Why do we call that play? What's going on there? Well, there's a system, right? There's a steering wheel, and then there's like a drive shaft and an axle and two tires, right? So that system lets us I turn the steering wheel and the tires move, right? So there's a utilitarian system that functions in a kind of logical way. But the play in that system is where that system is maybe not behaving in exactly the way it's supposed to in this sort of totally logical way, right? There's play in the system where it's not sort of functioning properly. But the play is only there because there's a system there, right? The play is not sort of existing in the ether somewhere. There's a system, and then the play is a certain way that that system is behaving. So to take a different example, if I can park my car off stage. To take another example, let's think about a child who's walking playfully. What are they doing? What's one way that a child walks playfully? You tell me. What's one way that a child walks playfully?
Skipping.
Skipping? Okay, I will demonstrate. So yes, a child might skip. What else? What else?
Dancing.
Dancing? Okay, so the child might be dancing as they're going down the street. What's another way that a child might be walking playfully?
Running around.
Running around, right? Okay, so maybe, zigzagging around. Anything else?
Backwards.
Backwards, I like that.
Ribbit frog.
Oh, ribbit frog. Okay, now we're getting, all right, so yes. All right, thank you for, yes?
Like somersault, maybe?
So, right, backflips, okay. So we get, and whatever, there's also like avoiding cracks, closing your eyes. What do all of these things have in common? Well, first of all, it's funny that when we see someone doing this, and I said a child, but as adults we can also walk playfully, obviously, but we immediately recognize it as play, right? But what is the system that play is playing with, like the steering in the car? Well, a lot of things, because walking does have a utilitarian function. It's like efficiently getting from point A to point B, right? But as soon as we start walking playfully, we're sort of not using that system in the most efficient way. We're playing with our bodies, we're playing with gravity, we're playing with the efficient use of time, or maybe wasting time if we're running around, right? Instead of going in a straight line. Maybe we're playing with the social space of the sidewalk and bothering people who are trying to use the sidewalk more efficiently, right? So I'm just trying to point out that for me, play is an interesting way of thinking about how it is that we play with systems, right? That we take something that is more kind of logical, utilitarian system, and we play with it. So play always plays with something. For me, play is a sort of a critical attitude, right? Play is one way of thinking about doing something you're not supposed to be doing, behaving in a way that is finding sort of like, let's say, new functionality or new ways of behaving or misbehaving within a given system, playing sort of inappropriately. And I love this. I just snapped this image in Brooklyn near where I live, which is just these kids who had just improvised their own way of playing, right? But we don't just have to do this kind of creative improvisation with games, right? How is it that we could play with social systems, with ideas, with culture, if we played more broadly with the urban environment as it relates to the natural environment, or even if we played with something like democracy, if we thought of that as a system that we could play with, what would that be like? Well, because when we play, as the car and the playful walking hopefully demonstrate, we play with a system, right? I mentioned before that there's something different happening today in the movement from linear media like film and image to now, right? And I've written about this and I've called it the 21st century, the ludic century, meaning that media and art and culture are becoming more like games. Not that everything is becoming a game or that games are the only way of understanding this phenomena, but it's one interesting way of understanding it. And what I mean is that so many parts of our lives are connected to networks of digital information. The way that we work and research and communicate and socialize and romance and conduct our finances and connect to our government, that games have a new relevance because, as I mentioned, even though they're an ancient form of human expression as a form of media and art or entertainment, games are particularly customizable and systemic. They are systems in the sense that they are intrinsically a set of parts that interrelate to form a whole. And so games just happen to be these wonderful contexts for pushing and pulling at the limits of a system and understanding how systems work, which for me always connects back to real world systems, right? So just to take an obvious example that's actually in the news a lot these days, gerrymandering, right? The idea that districts in, state districts for state voting and also for the House of Representatives for our federal government in the United States can be redrawn by the party in power, right? And suddenly, this used to be on this 10-year cycle with the census, and now even that's being broken and it's happening more often, right? So what is the problem with this from a systems perspective? Well, there's many, but one of them is that that software is being used to kind of very strategically redesign these districts so that they're being strategically redrawn. In game systems, this kind of feedback, right? So what happens in these systems is that rather than the voters picking the representatives are picking the voters, right? And so the party in power can entrench themselves even more. So you gain a little bit of power, and then you have enough power to control the redistricting, and then you get more power and more power that way. And in games, we call that a positive feedback loop. Wow, that's exciting. This is the most exciting moment in my talk, I think, so far. I paid a lot of money to the actor that just did that. Okay, just to wake everybody up, I was falling asleep in the middle of my talk. Where was I? Okay, so in a positive feedback loop, in a game like StarCraft 2, you get a little bit of resources that helps you get more resources. You use those resources to get more things that help you get more resources, and it's another positive feedback loop or snowballing kind of system, right? But the reason why this is balanced in a game like StarCraft 2 is that that's only one approach to playing the game. There's other approaches that are called things like defensive turtling or a rush, where you sort of go quickly at an opponent before they've been able to build up defenses. And so there's different kind of approaches to take, and the system is designed to accommodate that. But the government system, this kind of creaky old, 200-year-plus old system, is not working well, right? Is not kind of designed with that kind of flexibility in mind, and the end result is that the government is not operating in the spirit for which it is designed, right? The democracy is actually becoming this strange system that's getting gamed, and you can't really blame people for gerrymandering, right? In a sense, they're just playing the game really, really well. In other words, it's a little bit game-like thinking that's gotten us into this mess, and that games are part of the problem, but I hope that they can be part of the solution too. And I think to address these kind of problems does require some design. So this is just want to get through this last concept, then we'll go out and play. When I talk about design, for me, the way I teach design, there's lots of ways of thinking about what game design is or what design is, obviously, all of them interesting and none of them correct or incorrect, but increasingly I keep on thinking about design as a process, right? A process of learning how to solve problems. The most important part of that is, for me, how you move forward, right? Not the game at the end, but how a team works together, how you iterate and experiment and explore an idea through making something. And in a sense, the end result that you get at the end of a process is just the residue of the process itself, right? It's sort of a reflection of the process. In games, this process is iteration, right? That in a game, because games are dynamic systems, you really don't know how they're going to behave and interact when you start playing with them. So this notion of having an idea and trying it out and playtesting and prototyping and iterating, and of course, so many forms of art and design partake in this. Architects building models or actors doing a rehearsal. But games are particularly suited to practicing these essential design competencies of thinking and doing and being, because they are, in these intrinsically modular and systemic and customizable participatory dynamic systems. Because if one way of thinking about design is about the creation of meaning, the iterative process is sort of what helps us get there, to sort of figure out what the system is doing and how we can adjust it and modify it as we move forward. And the exercise that we're going to do actually focuses a lot on this idea of meaning creation and also how we change and modify a system and see the way that the meaning that's created changes over time. For example, just to return to this idea of this problem of democracy, what would it mean to be able to iterate and experiment on the systems that make up our government, right? And I think it's actually a really hard question, and this is actually a new project that I'm working on. This is actually the first time I'm talking about it, but I've just started working with Action for Democracy, which does democratic campaigns in countries with authoritarian governments, and Games for Change, which is a social impact advocacy group based in New York City. And we're planning for the spring a gathering of policy experts and game designers to not just talk about how we could change government systems, but also try and figure out, could we play test and prototype and sort of play through redesigning as certain systems related to government and democracy and how they work. Okay, so that's a quick tour of some key ideas from game design, and hopefully I've convinced you a little bit, if you're not coming from games, of the sort of the relevance and interesting connections between game design and other forms of making and doing and thinking, how games and play are relevant to the world where we live, the world that's quite broken, and hopefully we can, in places like this, we can educate each other and learn how to fix them, better understand our place in the world and how we can find new ways of playing and being in order to play better together. Thank you very much. Okay, so that was kind of like, sorry, that was a little bit of a fire hose of a talk, but wanted to introduce you to some ideas around game design, but I always think it's better to not talk about play, but actually play. So we're going to go next door here. So come and follow me, everybody. Let's go play. And by the way, you can participate as much as you want. So, but you can leave your stuff here. Leave your stuff here. Don't bring all your stuff. Leave your stuff here and quickly come. And by the way, the lecture, for those of you that are thinking, oh, okay, I did the lecture, I'm now going to sort of sneak out. The next part is the real talk and experience. So I really encourage you to come and take part, or even just watch if you'd rather watch. But let's go into the room next door. Let's form a big circle. Come in here, step in. Come on, you faculty voyeurs, you're joining too. Come, step into the room. Everybody make room, walk more towards this way. We're making a big circle. Come in, everybody. Don't stand in this way, you're blocking people from coming in. Come on in. Okay, let's form a big circle. Okay, so come on in a little bit. Move a little bit this way. I know it's hard. I don't want. Can we fit a few more people in? Can we squeeze in a little bit more? Squeeze in a little bit more. Okay. Can you walk a little bit this way? Just get a little bit cozier. A little bit cozier. There's a big space right here. Thank you. Okay. So, all right. So. We're going to do some exercises around the game rock, paper, scissors, the classic game rock, paper, scissors. Let me first ask, who speaks a language other than English, and you have rock, paper, scissors, a different name for rock, paper, scissors? What's one example? Anyone?
I have another English name.
What's another English name?
Rochambeau.
Rochambeau, okay. I believe, do you know where that comes from?
The skate culture, I think.
Skate culture, I believe that's from Japan. It's also called Rochambeau. Anyone else? Ahu, what is rock, paper, scissors in Turkish?
Taş, kağıt, makas. It's the same exact.
Say it again.
Taş, kağıt, makas.
Taş,
Kağıt,
kağıt,
makas.
makas. So taş is
Rock.
rock,
Kağıt is paper.
kağıt,
Scissors is makas.
makas.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Anybody else? Okay, well, let's just stick to English today to make it simpler for all of us. I don't think I want to embarrass myself trying to speak Turkish any more than that. Can I have 2 volunteers that want to volunteer to demonstrate? Yes, thank you. All right, I'll say you 2 first. Thank you for joining us. Okay, before you start, I love they're very eager to start playing. Before you start, we need to establish the sort of all-important timing rule, right? So I don't know how rock paper scissors is done here in Michigan, but is it rock paper scissors? 1, 2, 3, go. Rock paper scissors shoot. How do you two play?
I usually play rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot?
That's exactly it.
That's the standard? Okay, so we'll go with rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Are we ready for our first face-off? Okay. Oh, boy, you two are really want to go. I will help count you off then. Okay, and rock, paper, scissors, shoot. All right, so here, what's your name?
JP.
JP and?
Caleb.
Okay, Caleb. Okay, let's just do 2 out of 3. Okay, so point to JP. Let's go again. Wow. Thank you, Caleb, for that. Try again. And rock, paper, scissors, shoot. All right, tie. Let's try again. And rock, paper, scissors, shoot. All right, Caleb. All right, it's 1-1. This is for all the marbles. Let's try again. And rock, paper, scissors, shoot. All right, Caleb, returning to his earlier paper victory. Let's give it up for Caleb. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Caleb. Thank you. Okay, you can return. Let me ask everybody a question now that we've all had this shared experience of rock, paper, scissors. Would we say that rock, paper, scissors is a good game? Would we say this is a good game? What do we think? Any opinions about that? Yes or no?
I think so.
You think so? What's making you say yes?
I think it is efficient.
It's efficient. Okay, yeah, it's true. It's simple. Other thoughts or opinions? There's no right or wrong here, by the way.
It's a simple game.
It's a simple game, right? Easy, yes?
It's fair
It's fair. What do you mean by that? How is it fair?
because there's always a direct option that you can choose.
Okay, so it's balanced in the sense that if I choose a simple, I could win or I could lose. Okay, this is all good. It's simple. It's efficient. It's fair. Any other thoughts or opinions? Designers, yes.
Fun.
It's fun. Okay. Okay. Is it? Okay. Maybe it is fun. I don't know. I'll take your word for it, Steve. Other thoughts? Yes.
It only requires your hands.
Right. So it's you don't need to buy fancy, expensive equipment for it. Yes, you're just using your hands. So it's not 100% accessible. We could imagine people that couldn't play if they're visually impaired, but it's quite accessible as a game. Yes.
It can be applied to like other things. So
Ah.
if you have an issue, like you can play the game to solve it.
Right. So I don't know who's going to pay for these drinks. Let's play rock paper scissors and find out. Right. So it's a tool. So it has utility outside. Even if it's not fun, we could use it for other things. Yeah.
It's inherently social.
Okay, because it's
You have to engage with somebody individually.
right. It's not a single player game, for example. It's really about people interacting. Yeah.
There's a sense of unpredictability.
That's true. There is randomness to it. Yeah. So yeah.
As you were looking for languages, it transcends language barriers.
That's true. Often I might do an exercise like this, and there's you wouldn't believe the number of languages that it's known in. So it is I don't know if I'd call it a cultural universal, but it certainly is popular around the world. Does anyone want to weigh in against it being a good game? These are all true. It is simple and efficient. We can use it for other things. It's accessible.
There's no strategy.
There's no strategy. What do you mean by that? Let's elaborate.
If I were to have my 2 children play,
Yes.
my son being the younger one, he gets really frustrated when he can't win.
Ah.
And there's no predictability as to what the other person's going to play. And so
Okay.
he doesn't feel like there's a strategy or there's a trick to winning.
Right, okay, so maybe the fact that it is so simple or even so balanced that it also could pull against the idea of actually having strategy or any kind of strategic choice at all, which often in games is what we look for, right? We look for the ability to make some kind of meaningful choice. Anyone else want to join in or weigh in on that? Yes?
I would like to argue that there is a bit of predictability if you know the person you're playing against.
Okay.
Because you figure out the patterns that they're going to pick because people do not pick with 100% randomness.
Okay, so maybe there is over time, you could learn patterns or be able to predict things. Maybe, I don't know, maybe as your children get older, they will become masters of this sport of rock, paper, scissors. Any other thoughts or opinions about rock, paper, scissors? Yes.
To counteract that point, if you're playing someone you don't know, like me playing Caleb, you
Yes.
obviously don't know what they're gonna do.
Right.
So that kind of breaks the predictability of it
Right.
too.
Okay, so yes, and we have to trust our reigning champion here.
To counteract that, I could tell in 2 rounds in he's only throwing rock.
Ah, all right, so, okay. So, yeah, but let's say this about rock, paper, scissors. The best things that we've said about it are that, okay, it is balanced and fair and efficient, but I also agree that it is kind of random, and we can argue about it, but it's, compared to chess or something, right? It's a high, or even tic-tac-toe. It is a lot of randomness in this game. In fact, it's so, in some cases we might not play it just to play it, we would play it to decide something else, right? So there is a sense that maybe it's a good design, but maybe it's also, there's something kind of cheap and quick and almost disposable feeling about it, right? That maybe that's part of the lack of equipment that we need. But we don't have to decide, a game can have both of these things, right? What I want to do now in the time that we have left, and I just want to check. Okay, so we have about 20 minutes left. We're going to do some modifications to this game and kind of see where it takes us as a way of thinking about game design. So the first thing I want to do is I want to split you all into 2 teams. So we'll go here, and we'll split you 2 up here. So I would like each team to sort of huddle together, and here's what your team is doing. You're making a decision, and your decision is rock, paper, or scissors. And then you're going to send out your sort of representative, or your avatar, your champion, and then they will face off against each other. Okay? So go ahead and huddle up and start talking about it.
I think we all have to play around rock, paper, scissors. Whichever item wins the most is definitively the best item.
But it depends on how much you can convince the rest of the chamber.
I think he's got a power of voice.
Yeah, I agree.
So is this how it goes?
I feel like get nervous. Like you just make a decision. Like
Right, you don't
doing
have to
this
change any
anyways.
emotions, it's just like the default.
I feel like I better like break down.
Do you think we could cheat? Like maybe make it look like we're going to do and like see what they're doing? Because I mean, you do have to change the motion, so I think we have an opportunity to cheat and win.
volunteering, I think. It's all
I mean, if we're making a politics, we gotta cheat.
So in other words, whoever we do, you should do it for sure. Group that has the same wins or narrows it down. Or how does this work? If we gotta send somebody else.
Can't send Philip. He always plays paper. Do not take time negotiating.
I still feel paper, but if there is a tie, it would be.
They're playing psychologically now.
It's just we're playing paper, right?
Just yell random ones.
Rock for sure.
Hey, yo, but scissors though?
All right. Are you ready? Is this group ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Yes.
You are.
Oh, no, I'm ready. Yeah, I think we're ready. Is this group ready? Oh, you are ready. Okay, all right, so let's see. I think we have a representative from each group.
You seem more serious now.
Okay, come on out. So. Okay, before. All right, so. Okay, sorry, I don't want to interrupt this delicious trash talking. But I want to notice, okay, so as designers, game designers, but really designers in general, I feel like one of the skills that we have to cultivate is the skill of observation, observing humans, right? Especially in games, because you're really designing behaviors for people. You want to cultivate and learn how to observe people. So I always want to make an observation about you all, which is that this game of rock, paper, scissors, that a moment ago we were saying, okay, maybe it is good, but it was good because it was simple and efficient and fast and random and seemed like a very quick, easy to play game. But there was something going on because you all were discussing, that was like a full 5-minute discussion that each group had. So that's just an observation, right? We changed something about the game and then something started to change about the decision-making process. Okay, let's bookmark that, but let's go. I know you all want to see the result of this face-off. Shut up, Zimmerman. Let's see what happens. So are we ready? We're going to do the same rock, paper, scissors, shoot. And on shoot, you're going to present your weapon of choice or selection, however you want to frame it. Are we ready? And rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Oh. Wait a second. I want to make some more observations now. Wow. Okay, first of all, when we had JP and Caleb a moment ago facing off, they went and, okay, we were laughing and enjoying it, but it wasn't like, when I said let's thank our two combatants, there was a sort of scattered applause. But in this face-off, immediately there was a whoa sort of cry and applause, right? And then there was some additional, I think, revoking of student status. Playing games started going on. So again, we made a small change in the design, but lots of things started to change. And this is why you have to play test games. Because this idea of observing something only happens in the moment, right? I often think that as a game designer, you can have good ideas that you think are good, but who knows? Until you actually have people play testing and you're observing them playing your game, that's where the shit hits the wall or not, right? It sticks or it doesn't. I mean, that's where your sort of brilliant ideas can crash on the rocks of reality. So for me, my goal as a designer is, I know that in some design fields there's a lot of preparatory research, you look at references, you understand your audience, you understand the problem. We do that in games, but also parallel to that, we prototype immediately prototype, while we're also trying to understand our audience, because watching them play our game is a way of understanding them, right? So my methodology that I teach is rapid prototyping and iteration, and then prototyping is the center of how we learn. So in this case, just want to say that emotional reactions from an audience, it's telling you something about how you might evolve the design. But I want to face off again. We're going to give this team another chance to come back. So let's do this one more time. Let's get together and huddle up, and let's see what we can do. So let's try one more time.
I love this. You're welcome.
You won't. Okay.
We had good predictions.
That's a good call.
This time, they're going to get scissors.
I'm not. Yeah, you're not. You're on.
I think I'm allowed on this can.
Or if somebody else.
Security.
We have consensus.
If you don't want me to do it, I'll just run the same thing back.
If they hang on a trash can like the edges.
You ready?
You want to do it? Oh, now there's. You got it.
Are we ready over here? We are. Okay.
I'll see you on the other side.
Let's have our two.
You got it.
Let's have our two. All right, two new avatars. Now, I want to make another observation about this. One of the things I really like about this, especially when we have a really big group like this, is that you realize that suddenly when you have a group of, I don't know, about 15, 20 people trying to make a decision together, there's suddenly like a game within the game, right? And the game, that game is, how are we going to make a decision about this thing? So it is really interesting. I saw something shift, like at some points there was like one person really taking control and kind of dictating what can be happen. I saw there were some early discussions about voting in this, like should we vote? I saw some hand signals being given at certain points. And I've seen very elaborate systems develop with a big group like this. The one group did they would do rock, paper, scissors with each other, and then if you lost, you would step out. And so they did their own rock, paper, scissors elimination within the group in order to find out which symbol they should do. So it was just, so that's also interesting that sometimes when you design a game, there's actual, even though it's not the focus of the game, there's other sort of problems and activities and that can emerge out of that, right? Emerge out of the design system. For this one, let's see if we can keep designing. What can we do to make this more theatrical, right? So we've done a few like just regular face-off. Does anyone have any ideas about what we could do with, I don't know, what they're doing, what we're all doing, how they're facing, what happens, like something to make this more interesting or theatrical? Sort of heighten that. What's that?
We could chant like what we want them, the other team to play or our team to play.
Okay, you could. I like that idea. Let's get some other ideas out on the table.
What if we made Philip the referee?
just to have an additional referee. But isn't he on your team? Interesting suggestion. Let's get some more ideas. Yeah.
What if we like try to put this in kind of a setting of like a Western shootout or something where there's like draw?
How would that work? So let's spin this out a little bit. So they would start back to back.
Yeah, we turn back to back, wait a few seconds, maybe like someone would also whistle something like.
Okay.
Do they have to go back 10 paces?
Ooh, yeah, go back.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. So let's do this. So maybe they start back to back and we say like rock, paper, scissors, and then they would turn around. Is that?
Shoot is basically the draw.
Okay. All right. Shall we try that? Okay. So let's try this. Let's take this idea. We're start back to back. I think back to back or a little closer. Okay. I think we're good now. We're good now. Okay. So you two are ready? Okay. We're gonna try this. Is everybody ready? All right. And rock, scissors, paper, shoot. I like it that even the quote-unquote losing team is also giving some applause here. All right, so let's pause. What's that?
No, I was saying that's good sportsmanship.
Yeah, okay, thank you, yes. Okay, I want to pause for a moment here and talk a little bit about what we're doing. I said in the talk part that games are about the creation of meaning, right? So one of the things that is happening in rock, paper, scissors is that it is in a sense about the creation of meaning. And what I mean by that is if you saw someone walking down the street and going like this, I don't know what it could mean. Maybe it's like, I'm gonna cross the street because they look angry. Or maybe, I don't know, they're listening to, some music and they're kind of dancing to the music, right? It can mean a lot of things. But in rock, paper, scissors, we give this gesture, we imbue this gesture with meaning. That's what the game does. And so, yes, it looks like a rock, sort of. I mean, it has a kind of iconic relationship between the signified and the signifier, but it also has a logical relationship, right? That it's beaten by one symbol and it beats another symbol and it ties with another rock. And this is a sense in which every game is like a little miniature language that you make. That you design the relationships between the parts in that language. And then playing the game, it's like having a conversation in that language. And of course, as a game designer, you hope that that things get, that you can sort of get some depth in that language so it becomes expressive and interesting for your players. And so the way that games create meaning using these languages commonly is through action and outcome. That a player does something and then there's a result, right? The main choice that we said, like maybe it's random or not, but it is this choice of which symbol, right? Whether you're deciding by yourself or with a team, that's the main choice that you're making. And then the outcome is, did I win or did I lose, right? So that idea of, for me, I think about that a lot. that this relationship between action and outcome, these are like the little atoms by which we design interactive experiences, right? And the dirty little secret of games is that most games are really repetitive. You do the same thing over and over again, right? Whether it's, I don't know, basketball, dribbling, passing, shooting, whether it's, running and jumping in a platformer, you do the same things over and over and over again. So the real challenge is, how do you create meaning, right? How do you create those little moment-to-moment moments of meaning, and how do you create kind of larger trajectories over time? And I think this exercise is interesting because I sense that you are all, even though I keep on pausing us to talk, so sorry about that, but I sense that you are all getting more and more engaged, right? Just by the emotional reaction, the clapping, the good sportsmanship, the trash talking beforehand, right? But what are we actually doing? We're taking this action and outcome, right? This action and then the outcome, and by making some small changes in the design, we're actually like sort of stretching it out, right? Because think about what we did. Instead of just the very first example when it was Caleb and JP, and it was sort of quick and over with, I brought you to a team. Then suddenly you're deliberating on it. Then you're sending someone out who's a representative who then has like an allegiance towards you, or a representative relationship to the sort of the tribe that's sending them out. And then of course we did even more in this last one. I love the sort of high noon shootout kind of feeling of this, right? So in all of these changes to the design, we're taking this one choice that's a simple choice, and we haven't really changed the logic of the game, but we're kind of like stretching it out. And in that kind of expansion of the choice, both in time and in space and in social space, that sort of there's more space for meaning to occur. And for me, that's a really important lesson for game design, because like in a lot of games, like what is the player doing? I don't know, they're clicking the mouse button, right? Or pushing the controller button. How do you make that moment meaningful, right? How do you do that? How do you take a simple action and kind of expand it in some way, right? So that what you're doing, how you're doing it, the outcome and ramifications of it become more and more meaningful. So to me, it's actually a really deep and profound lesson in this exercise about that kind of process. We're almost out of time. I will say that if this exercise, there's more to this exercise. If we had more time today, we could do other things with rock, paper, scissors too. We could change the surface of the game, right? We could make it into panther, person, porcupine, for example. You could make it a more like engaged game like tag and all of these things. But where if you're on the losing team, you're trying to tag members of the winning team. There's all these different interesting variations to rock, paper, scissors that we could do, that we would continue to sort of mod the game. And this process of taking an existing game and kind of like modifying it over time that's kind of what we do in game design, right? So because of this iterative process where you rapidly prototype and then you play test and then you base your decisions on what happened during the play test, right? So for me, that iterative process is, you make something and then you play it. And then you analyze what happened. So what was working, what wasn't working, and how can we move this to a better place? And then you make some changes, and then you have a new version of the game, which you can then play test, and then you analyze the play test, and that iterative process, that's an essential methodology that I teach as a game designer. And I should just say, maybe to finish up before we could take a question or two, that a lot of people are talking about AI now, right? As it relates to design and technology. And while you can use artificial intelligence to create assets for games, to make text and images and sound, this process of watching someone play your game, maybe it's on a tabletop, maybe it's on a screen, observing what they do, seeing what works and what doesn't work, making decisions about how do we evolve the rules of the game, the functioning of the system, in order to make the stuff happen that we want to have happen. Then we sort of implement those changes and then iterate to the next version. AI right now can't do any of that. It can't look at a person playing a game, understand what they're doing, sense when they're having fun and not having fun, decide what changes to make those small iterations, and then figure out how to implement them into the game. Right now, AI can't touch game design. So yes, while we can use AI to make assets, for me as a game designer, the heart of the design process is still a very, very human process. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. We're kind of out of time. I don't know, should we take a quick question or two? Or, well, first of all, give yourselves a round of applause. Great job, everybody. Very fun playing with you. And we are doing a workshop at 2 o'clock?
Yes.
At 2 o'clock, it's a tabletop exercise. I did it for the game design students, but anyone is of course welcome. It's a much crunchier, nerdier, system balancing with some numbers kind of exercise. So
And we'll be back in that.
one. So anyone is welcome to come. We could accommodate up to maybe 40
As
people
much
or
as the
so.
room
Yes.
takes, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are there any I don't know, should we take questions or?
Yeah, we can take questions. We have time. Unless if people need to leave, they can, but
Yes.
we can take them.
I can also hang out a little bit afterwards if we want. Yes.
Is there anything that you feel like is most important that we should know about?
In what sense?
Just in general.
I don't know. I mean, I think being an artist or designer, I don't think there's anything that I know that you should know about, but I think cultivate your own interests, right? Especially outside of games. So I think that too often people in games are sort of just playing games and inspired by other games. So I would love to see game students looking more at architecture and fine art and fashion and photography and other forms of architecture. But you have to figure out what's meaningful to you and what you want to be inspired by.
Nice.
Yes.
This idea of fun came up when
Yes.
we were talking about
Yeah.
rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
Do you think of fun as something that can be defined or
It's
measured?
creative. My point was it's creative. I'm trying to come up with something better. So I don't know, I'm having fun. More creative. So you think about kind of outside the box. That's just
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting answer because that's one idea of fun is sort of engagement or creativity. I mean, I think fun is rooted, for me, fun is rooted in desire and pleasure. And I think it's very hard to talk about and theorize about pleasure because as we know from traditional psychology like Freud, it's maybe part of our unconscious being, like why we have sexual drives or drives to pleasure. And so if you're it's something that we don't know by definition. So I do think that fun is interesting, but there's something ineffable that goes beyond our rational understanding about it. It's interesting. For me, fun is it's like I don't know, tastiness to a chef. Like we sort of assume it's there, right? Like if a chef is making food, you want it to be tasty and yummy in some way, but you also might have an avant-garde chef who's very challenging and is like, no, my food, yeah, my food is going to challenge your palate and it may not be tasty to you in a way that you're expecting, right? And so I actually think there's lots of game designers today doing interesting experimental work where they're really trying to kind of overthrow this idea of fun. I just yesterday at the Game Center, passing through New York City, we had Tim Hutchings, who's an indie role-playing game designer. He designed 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, which is a sort of a solo book-based role-playing game, very interesting. But he specifically was saying he is aiming for to make his players feel yucky. Like he wants them to feel sort of like at the end of that game, you've outlived your family and friends, and you've often killed or exploited them all in this narrative of you being a 1,000-year-old vampire. And he said he's really enjoying that feeling of making his players feel bad, right? But they're also enjoying that kind of process. So this is kind of what I mean, why do people watch horror films? Well, it's not, is that fun? I mean, pleasure comes in so many forms, right? And it's often, I think in games, it's a particular mix of reward and punishment and being challenged, and so it's very
And flow.
yeah, and the flow state. So there's not one way of thinking about it, but for me it's a more intuitive thing, and it's also driven by aesthetics. It's about what is the kind of experience that you want to make. And so a commercial mainstream experience might be more like you are sort of serving the player, giving them yummy, tasty food, but that's not the only way to approach it, right?
Right.
But it's a really good question.
question.
Yeah.
Do you ever use focus groups during your process?
Yeah.
To determine where you're at a certain stage of development?
Constantly, but we call them playtesters. So playtesters.
Playtesters.
So this process that I talked about making something and then playtesting it, it's a little different than focus testing. Usually focus testing is more about bouncing a concept or the look of something? Are they connecting with the content? Playtesting, you can use playtesting in a similar way. Is this audience connecting with this game, for example?
Well, the reason I ask is because I was observing this group here.
Yes.
There were approximately 18 people in the group.
Yeah?
And they were in the process of making a decision. Excuse me. Only 4 people contributed to ideas during that 5-minute period.
Interesting.
And then the other people kind of either acquiesced or agreed, well, let's do it that way. So out of 18 people, the input came from only 4 people, and the other people kind of laid back, for whatever reason.
Right.
And I don't know if that has any impact on your decision-making process as you're going through this.
It depends on why you're designing the game. So if your goal was, we're trying to design a game where there's a kind of universal participation, then you would want to change it. Maybe you end up designing or structuring that conversation. But I will say it's not unusual in a game community that you get a kind of pyramid effect, where you have a small number of leaders, and then a lesser number of engaged people, and then more people that are very casually engaged, right? So that that sort of smaller number of leaders and then other people that are less engaged, that's actually really common in games and in social communities in general. But if you wanted to work against that, then you might need to structure it more, so that then you get the okay, everyone is going to go turn by turn and say what they think, and we'll vote, for example.
Sure.
But what I like about this exercise is that it's a little bit in the hands of players. And I see very, very different, sometimes this happens, a few people take over, but there's very different styles that different groups take on in terms of the decision-making process.
I wonder if that's because people play games, enjoy games differently. Some people want to sit back and watch others have fun versus the ones that want to be at the lead of it. I wonder why, maybe that's why people participated differently.
Right, well that's, I also think that that's an interesting thing about games. What's that?
So we need a psychology major.
Right. Well, one of the reasons why I love game design is because you wear so many different hats. And one of them is a kind of psychologist, therapist, party host. Sure. Sometimes you're a storyteller, sometimes you're an engineer, right? But I think in terms of, what was your original comment again?
I think it's because people enjoy games differently. Some people, if you're at a get-together, some people like to sit back and watch others play. And others like to be the ones doling out the rules and telling everybody how this game works. And you just participate differently in gameplay.
And it's interesting that I think when games can support very different roles, right? Whether maybe it's in a massive multiplayer online game, you can be more of I'm going to be the healer of the party. I'm going to be the aggressive leader of the party. Or even in sports, you have spectators versus players, right? So, or even learning the rules, as you say. Like some people are more assertive, and so I also think it's interesting when games are designed as spectator sports, or when they can have a range of these kind of roles, a range of engagement. So again, it's a lot of part of it is about observing what people do, and then figuring out, okay, do we like this or not like this, and how do we want to evolve this? I know we're over time and people have to get to class, so.
I'll just make a quick comment. I like your take on AI. I know it's difficult right now for a lot of people because they feel their jobs are going to be taken away. But it basically is a tool, and it's still pretty hard to reduce the human element. Right.
Yeah. It's funny, in the game community, I don't know about here, but the vibe in my program is students hate AI. They're like, if we say what should the AI policy of this class be, students will say absolutely no AI. It's it's unethical. It's stealing IP. It's using energy. It's unsustainable. And then of course they're using it all the time in their web searches and generating some text and ideas and stuff. So it's hard. But I still think that core design process, AI is not there yet. Maybe it will never be. Okay, well thank you again everybody. This was really fun. This was very fun. Maybe I'll see some of you at 2 o'clock. you.